I don't know where to start. How do you even begin to explain something that shouldn't exist? Something that lives just outside of what we're supposed to see? But if you're listening to this, maybe you felt it too. That creeping sensation that someone or something is watching you. I used to think I was just paranoid. You know, the way your mind plays tricks on you when you're alone in the dark. But then I met the lurker, and now I know. Sometimes the darkness isn't empty. Sometimes it's waiting. It started about 3 months ago. I just moved into a new apartment. Nothing fancy, just a little one-bedroom on the outskirts of town. The kind of place where the neighbors mind their own business, and the streetlights are always broken. It was quiet, which was exactly what I needed after, well, let's just say a rough couple of years. The first time I noticed something was off, it was subtle. I was unpacking boxes late one night, and I got this feeling, like I wasn't alone. I shrugged it off. New place, new sounds, right? Pipes creak, floorboards settle. It's normal. But then I saw it. Out of the corner of my eye, in the reflection of the living room window, I thought I saw someone just standing there, watching me. I whipped around so fast I almost tripped over a box, but of course no one was there. Just my empty apartment, silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I laughed it off. Get a grip, I muttered to myself. But that night, I didn't sleep. A week went by, and things got stranger. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I'd heard footsteps in the hallway. Or I'd find little things out of place. My keys on the counter when I was sure I'd left them by the door. A picture frame tilted just enough to notice. Nothing big, nothing that couldn't be explained. But it felt deliberate, like someone was trying to mess with me. Then, one night, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not my own. This was louder, heavier. It took me a second to realize it was coming from the closet. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst, but I forced myself to get up. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, an old baseball bat, and yanked the closet door open. Nothing. Just clothes and shadows. But as I stood there, bat in hand, I swear I felt something, like the air itself was watching me. I slammed the door shut and slept with the lights on after that. By the second month, I was starting to lose it. Every time I turned a corner, I expected to see someone standing there. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd feel that same oppressive presence, like something was crouched in the shadows, waiting for me to let my guard down. And then came the dreams. They weren't dreams, not really. More like glimpses, flashes of dark hallways that stretched on forever. A shape, humanoid but wrong, its limbs too long, its movements jerky, like a puppet with broken strings, and those eyes, hollow, but somehow full of malice. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, the image burned into my mind. One night I woke up to find my bedroom door open. I always closed it before bed, always. But now it was open just a crack, enough to let a sliver of darkness spill into the room. I stared at that door for what felt like hours, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. And then, slowly, it began to close. Not slam, not creak, just a soft, deliberate motion like someone was pushing it shut from the other side. I started seeing it more often after that. The lurker. At first, it was just glimpses. A shape in the corner of my eye. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. But then it started getting bolder. I'd catch it, standing at the end of the hallway, its head tilted as if it were studying me. It never moved, never spoke. It just watched. I tried everything. Salt lines, sage, even a priest. None of it worked. If anything, it seemed to piss it off. The shadows in my apartment grew darker, heavier. Objects would move in front of me, my coffee mug sliding across the table, the TV turning on by itself, the lights flickering no matter how many times I replaced the bulbs. And then, last week, it spoke. I was brushing my teeth, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling that something was standing just behind me, when I heard it. A voice, low and guttural, like it was scraping its way out of a throat that hadn't been used in years.
Let me in.
I dropped my toothbrush and spun around, but of course, there was nothing there. Just the mirror, fogged up from the steam of the shower. But as I stared at my reflection, I saw it. A handprint. On the glass. Not mine. Too big. Too clawed. And it was on the inside. Since then, it's been everywhere. I see it in the reflections of windows, in the shadows under my bed, in the corner of my vision when I'm walking down the street. It's like it's tethered to me now, like I've let it into my life without even realizing it. And I think it's getting stronger. Last night, I woke up to find it standing at the foot of my bed. For the first time, it wasn't just watching, it was smiling. A crooked, impossible smile that stretched across its face like a crack in glass. It didn't say anything, didn't move, just stood there, grinning, until I finally passed out from sheer terror. I don't know what it wants, or why it chose me. All I know is that it's not going away. If you've ever felt like you're being watched, if you've ever seen something that shouldn't be there, don't ignore it. Because once the lurker finds you, there's no escape. So if you're listening to this, do me a favor. Check your closet. Look under your bed. And whatever you do, don't let it in.
You ever wonder about the stuff you watch on TV late at night? I'm not talking about the cheesy infomercials or reruns of old sitcoms. I mean the weird stuff. Those random channels you stumble across when you're flipping through and you can't tell if it's art, a prank, or something darker. I used to love that kind of thing. The stranger, the better. But after what I saw, after what I experienced, I'll never look at a television the same way again. It all started about a month ago. I'd just moved into this tiny apartment. Nothing fancy, just a cheap little place downtown. The kind of place where you can hear your neighbors yelling through the walls, and the plumbing always sounds like it's about to explode. But it was mine. And after years of couch surfing, I was grateful for the space. One of the first things I did was set up my TV. It wasn't anything special, just an old flat screen I'd picked up at a thrift store. It worked fine, but it was old enough that it still needed a digital antenna to pick up local channels. I didn't have cable, so I figured I'd just stick to streaming, but the antenna came with the TV, so I hooked it up. That's when things got strange. The first night, I was flipping through the channels, just seeing what was on. Most of it was static or weird local programming, stuff like public access cooking shows and church services. But then I found Channel 88. It wasn't listed in the guide, and when I flipped to it, the screen went black for a second. I was about to move on when something appeared. At first, I thought it was an old TV show. It had that grainy, low-budget look, like it had been filmed decades ago. There was a man sitting in a chair, staring directly at the camera. He was wearing a suit, but it didn't fit him right, like it was a size too big, and he'd borrowed it for the occasion. He didn't say anything. He just stared. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was some kind of experimental art piece, but the longer I watched, the more uncomfortable I felt. There was something about his eyes. They were too bright, too intense, like he was looking through the screen directly at me. I changed the channel and didn't think much of it. But the next night, I ended up on Channel 88 again. This time, it was different. The man wasn't there anymore. Instead, it was a woman. She was sitting in the same chair, wearing the same ill-fitting suit. She had this vacant expression, like she wasn't really there. And then, without warning, She started talking. "Do you see us?" she asked, her voice soft and flat. "We see you." I dropped the remote. My first thought was that it had to be a prank, some weird guerrilla marketing thing, or an elaborate hoax. But I couldn't look away. The woman tilted her head, like she was waiting for an answer. And then, almost imperceptibly, she smiled. Not a friendly smile. This was something else. Something predatory. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't get her voice out of my head. "We see you." It echoed over and over, like a song you can't stop humming. I told myself I wouldn't watch Channel 88 again, but the thing is, I didn't have a choice. The next night, when I turned on the TV, it was already on Channel 88. I hadn't left it there. I was sure of that. But there it was, and this time there were more of them. 3 people, all sitting in chairs, all wearing those ill-fitting suits. They were just staring, their heads slightly tilted, their eyes unblinking. I tried changing the channel, but the remote wouldn't work. The buttons on the TV itself didn't work either. I even unplugged the damn thing. But when I plugged it back in, it went straight to Channel 88. By the end of the week, it wasn't just the TV. I started seeing them everywhere. Reflections in windows, shadows in the corner of my eye. Once, I caught a glimpse of one in my bathroom mirror. A man in a suit, standing just behind me. But when I turned around, the room was empty. They didn't speak again, not directly, but I could feel them, always watching. The worst part was the dreams. Every night, I'd find myself sitting in that same chair, under those harsh, flickering lights. They'd surround me, their faces blank, their eyes piercing, and then they'd start whispering. I couldn't understand the words, but I knew they weren't speaking to me. They were speaking about me. I tried getting rid of the TV. I took it down to the dumpster, but when I got back to my apartment, it was sitting in the living room, plugged in, tuned to Channel 88. I even smashed it with a hammer once. The next morning, it was back, perfectly intact, like nothing had happened. I stopped turning it on, but it didn't matter. At night, I'd wake up to find it glowing in the corner of the room, the sound turned down low, but I could still see them, sitting, staring, smiling. I don't know what they want. I don't even know if they're real or if I'm just losing my mind, but I do know one thing. They're not just on the TV anymore. Last night I heard someone whispering outside my bedroom door. When I opened it, the hallway was empty, but I could feel them. The air was heavy, electric, like a storm was about to break. And then I saw it, a shadow, moving just out of sight, too tall, too thin to be human. If you're listening to this, do yourself a favor. Don't go looking for Channel 88. Don't try to find the strange, forgotten corners of late-night television, because once they see you, they don't let go.